Good day, Paul Myers. Some of you know me from one of the car clubs that I belong to, some of you don't. I'm a historian by nature, not by profession. My profession was in economics and in safety, industrial and construction safety. I got involved with the Cobe Cup originally back in 1976. That was our national centennial, and they ran a trace of that, of the Cobe Cup out of downtown Crown Point. Then they did it again at the Sesquicentennial of Whiting, and we have a wonderful piece here that I'm going to go through some of the highlights on that aren't on the PowerPoint. The original money that was invested in the Cobe Cup was about $60,000, and back then that was an awful lot of money. They did it because the Vanderbilts out in Long Island had a race in 1905, and they said, well, we can do that. It was a Chicago Automobile Club. That's not like the Chicago Motor Club or anything. This was a club of people that could afford cars back in 1905. And we'll talk about the price of those cars in a few minutes. It was a wonderful thing. They finally got it up and running. It took them about 5 years to plan the whole thing, or 4 years to get it up and done. There were a number of things that they had to fight about. One of which was keeping away from railroad tracks. You can't have a road race if they get stopped by trains, so they had to come up with a route. They also wanted it paved roads, and back then that was rare. Matter of fact, it was a macadam, I think was what it was called, and that was crushed stone with tar. And a couple of years ago when we ran this very same course, I was in front, and they were paving one of the roads with a huge tar machine, and the flames were coming out across the center line, and I thought, I'm going to have to buy tires for people if this keeps up. But we didn't. Nothing went wrong. The townsfolk and farmers cashed in on this because of parking, seats, and food. They really couldn't make money on the race because they couldn't put a grandstand on a 20-some mile route. They put there were 2 grandstands here and one down in Lowell, and they were a total failure, just a flat failure, because farmers are letting to stay on, right there for no problem. There was also a wonderful problem that came up, was that they found out that some of the widows in town that had the nice big manor houses were renting their parlors out at $10 a night. And they couldn't figure out why. They had a good idea what it was, but they were wrong. They got all the ladies together one day and said, what are you doing? And they said, we're raising money for a new church, or new organ for the Methodist Church. The gentleman apologized and left. This was the Western Stock Race. There were 2 races. They had nothing to do with Memorial Day weekend. They were in June, on a Friday and a Saturday. And they were Western stock races. One was the Indiana Trophy, which, by the way, we've never found the Indiana Trophy. The other one was the Cobe Cup. The original Cobe Cup was used here 1 year. It's about this tall, and it's sitting down in Indianapolis. It's now in a vault in Indianapolis. They won't display it again. If you haven't been down to Indy lately, I can remember the last time I was down there was in the 80s. You paid a little more to go downstairs, and there was all the Indiana-built cars were there from Franklin to on, and Cadillac, Auburn, Ford, Duesenberg, beautifully restored cars. They've been auctioned off because now it's a raceway museum, not anything else. The Cup was used 4 times after that, after up here, twice down in Indianapolis, and then it was leased out or went to the highest bidder, and the Aurora Speedway used it twice, and that was it. And we know that because at the bottom, they extended the bottom of the Cup, and they put a special plaque on it that covered the ones that were there. One of the problems we have is no one today is alive from those days and doesn't remember anything. So what we have to do is keep looking for things and finding things, and every time I open up my portfolio or get online, we find out more information on the Cobe Cup than we had before. And that, in my personal opinion, is outstanding. The program that we've seen before, a booklet that was listed as a program, wasn't exactly just a program. It was an advertisement to do it. I grew up, we used to go to the Shrine Circus over in Hammond, and you bought a program that you could go down during intermission and have the lion tamers and that autograph it for you. That's a program. This was something that was sold beforehand, and we think that there were two different editions. One for up here at Crown Point, one for at Lowell or here. If we could get a hold of the original ones, we would have it made. And I say that because there's information that's coming out of those that is contradictory. If this was a program for those 2 days, why would they have an entire section on how to find a paved road from Illinois to Indiana? And the answer is, there's no reason. The other thing is, they advertise train prices. You could take the train here to Crown Point, I think to possibly Cedar Lake or Lowell. Cedar Lake, they could take the train here and find housing or a place to stay. The fact that one of the places that, one of the new slides that we have that hasn't been in this before, was about a hotel that the drivers of these, one of the cars and the car themselves was housed at the hotel next door, that way. Thank you. Next door. It wasn't housed in this one. This one wasn't built until 21, but the other one was around earlier. So these are the things that we're finding now that we didn't have before. The governors of both states had to approve this, and they did. Illinois also gave permit, and Woodrow Wilson also was involved in it. The National Guard from Illinois was brought in, and they were here for one reason. They ran the telegraphs, because there were a number of telegraph stations along the way that would keep people informed as to what was going on. The start and finish line was 1¼ miles southeast of South Street. And if you know what to look for, from looking at some of the photos in this, you'll see exactly where it's at. For those of you that haven't seen this program before, I've spent weeks driving through the entire course, looking at the notes I have and the photos I have to try to copy them in color. So you'll see the original postcards and the original things out of the program. Again, wasn't a program, it was a solicitation for people to be here. There were some haberdashers in Chicago that got involved too, selling motor coats and special goggles and special gloves with gauntlets that they would usually use back then. They also tried to sell box seats on the bleachers and that didn't work at all. Just so people could get in and out of the raceway, since it was closed off for the 2 days. They built some overpasses out of wood, which was really good until they kept taking horse and buggies over it. And the horses seemed to make things slippery when they... We won't go into details, but let's just say they weren't sanitary. So they had troubles getting people over them and buggies and that over them. But it was just the biggest thing that ever happened in Northwest Indiana at that time. And as I say, the sesquicentennial for the Cobe Cup, they put out a very nice hardback, and one of those things that was put out in it was this wonderful article, Racing's Golden Era by Harry P. Hunt, as given in the souvenir book of Crown Point in their 125th anniversary in 1993. So I got this right out of the book. And he did a great job, and he's the one that also mentions the fact that no one was here. No one alive back in '93 was around to talk about it. And if they were still around, they just didn't have it all together. There were some wonderful things that went on. I don't believe anyone ever died in the race, but there were a number of people that didn't finish. We'll discuss that as we go through. At Lowell, where half the town was gathered at Clark and Main Street, enthusiasm ran high as the cars weaved in perilous ways through the town. The man in the moon lost his minute. The sun got knocked out completely on that one. You could hear the brakes screeching. in certain places, and we'll show you exactly where that was and why. Oh, and flaggers waved car coming, so people would know there was a car coming. There was no way to control what was going on. The grandstands were on the east side of 9 Mile Stretch, and right across from it was the judges' stand. And on that side also was the pit stops, which were heavy planks across that. There were also a number of bridges that were put in just because of this, special bridges. They were beam bridges instead of, you know, just something that would get you over it. There was a family from Crown Point called Horst, H-O-R-S-T, and on 9 Mile Road there used to be a pond on both sides. As a matter of fact, during this race they put a bridge over it, and that was called the Horst Pond. And now you can still see that on the west side of 9 Mile Stretch. And I think that's amazing to see that. While a lot of people that have run this as a car club thing have driven through the downtown area, around the courthouse and that, the only people during either race day that went to the downtown area were the first 5 winners, the first through 5th people to finish the races, and they went downtown for their awards. The other thing we found out recently is that Mr. Cobe's brother, Harry Cobe, ran in 5 races, none of which did his brother sponsor or endorse. He never finished a race, never finished to the winner's circle, and that's interesting. The other thing that I found interesting from my personal standpoint in living in the Marktown Historic District, Marktown was designed by Howard Van Doren Shaw, who married John McCutcheons, or his daughter married John McCutcheons, the famous cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune. And there were 2 cartoons on the front page of the Chicago Tribune by McCutcheons. And I was able, because of newspapers today, I was able to go online and get the download of that front page and include it in some of the things we do. So I'm going to assume we don't have any questions right now, and I can go ahead and start. By the way, this is the Western Stock race for the Cobe Trophy, and the 2 days. They don't even mention the Indiana Trophy at all, and they call it a Cobe Trophy instead of the Cobe Cup. The original of this was in color. I had never seen one except one that got sold on eBay, and all you get is this in color. If I ever see one on eBay, if I have to take out a mortgage, I'm going to buy it. Hopefully this will work. There we go. There we go. This is the souvenir book and program put out by Crown Point. This is why we know there were 2 of them, because the other one that you just saw was put out by Lowell. Cobe Cup, Indiana Trophy, Crown Point, and Cobe Cup, June 18th and 19th, 1909. This is a black and white of it, and this is the color. Back in '83, I had contacted the Indiana Raceway and asked them if I could get a color print of this. And they sent me a contact print. It was a large format thing, and they sent me that, and I've had them in my file ever since. So I decided I was going to put out a booklet on this. I decided it looked pretty good on the cover. So what's the Cobe Cup all about? Again, it started with Chicago Automobile Club. 1908, Harold Wheeler of Crown Point discovered the Crown Point Lowell Circuit via Cedar Lake. All of the roads throughout were to be finished with macadam finish or surface. Note, macadam requires bituminous binder similar to blacktop. Now what I find interesting is that what's now Indianapolis Boulevard wasn't paved in 1909. Matter of fact, it isn't even on a map. We do have a section map of Lake County for some time after 1909. It's huge. A member of the Highland Model A Club bought it at a rummage sale, all rolled up, and he gave it to me just as a gift. It's big, and we've given the hotel here a part of that map to show exactly what the route of the race was, because it's written on there, Cobe Cup, on the section map. My neighborhood was one of the first concrete paved neighborhoods in northwest Indiana. And we know that because when I was growing up, they had started to pave over it with blacktop, which meant we didn't have any curb at all. And I stuck my nose into city politics long enough to get all of these streets and sidewalks repaved, fighting with city engineers time and time again. City engineer says, well, we can't have people park on sidewalks or park in the street because you can't get a fire engine through here. I said, really? How wide do you think fire engines are? Oh, they're 8 or 10 feet wide. And I let you 10 or 12 feet wide, and I laughed. I said, no, they aren't. They're no more than 8 foot wide. And if our streets are 32 foot wide, counting sidewalks and everything else, and there's 8 foot in the middle, and they can't get a fire truck down it, they shouldn't be driving it. I said, the other problem, and I'm sure the fire chief will agree with me on this, is that you don't park the fire truck in front of the burning building. You park it near the fire hydrant, which are on all the corners and none in the middle of the block, so they can pump the water to the fire. That tells you how stupid city engineers can be. But there were two wonderful cartoons. One of them, if you ever get a chance to go on this with anybody, wasn't S-curves. That's what we always talk about, is the S-curves, but there were two major 90-degree curves right as you got off it to head down to Crown Point, and those were the treacherous ones. The S-curves were nothing compared to those. Mr. Cobe personally contributed the trophy, known today as the Cobe Cup. It stands 5'6", and as I said, is in the museum. There were two races: the Indiana Trophy on June 18th on Friday, 19 drivers, race time 4 hours, 31 minutes and 21 seconds. Average speed was 51 miles an hour. This is 1909, guys, 51 miles an hour and 42 seconds. The guy won by 8 minutes and 3 seconds. He also led 8 laps. The winner, Joe Matson, driving Chalmers Detroit number 19, won it. The Cobe Cup had 12 drivers. Race time was 8 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds. It was more laps than the other race. Average speed 49.287. Margin of victory 85 seconds. They didn't do the Indy start like they do today. 1 minute interval per car. The judges at the starting line, 1 minute intervals. That was it, and you moved on. That way there wasn't a bunch of crowds out there, although people did pass other drivers. Margin of victory was 85 seconds, of course, by Lewis Chevrolet driving a Buick, and right after the race he headed to Detroit and helped form General Motors. 6 of the 12 cars never finished the race. We will discuss what part of those, why they didn't. It's interesting in its own. Lewis Chevrolet won the race by 14 laps. There were 14 laps and he was ahead of them. The racing rules were interesting, to say the least. Stock chassis were required. The minor changes can be made. Additional lighting and oil and fuel supplies may be added to the car. Steering post and mangle was regulated. Piston displacement was 300 cubic feet. On the pistons for the Cobe Cup, it was 525 cubic feet, considerably higher. I thought it was interesting that for the Indiana Trophy, that the average weight per driver, which required 2 people, was 132 pounds. What did they do, hire high school kids or something? I never understood that. For the Cobe Cup, the weight on the truck had to be, or on the car had to be at least 2,250 pounds, which is considerably higher anywhere else. But they could, if they didn't meet the weight, they'd put lead weight into it. They also restricted it so you couldn't have a gravity-fed fuel system. The reason for that is if there's an accident, that gas is going to be everywhere. So the guy on the passenger side had to pump the gas. This was a time when they were still trying to figure out which side they were going to put the steering wheel on. All right. And the one that did finally make that decision was Henry Ford. Workmen busy preparing Indiana course of Cobe Cup. This is what they're doing. They're placing the tar and the stone down. Indiana Trophy itself, the Chalmers Detroit, driven by Poole. Matson won the Indiana Trophy. This is the times we wouldn't have gotten this if not for the ability to take this stuff off the internet these days. Matson driving the Chalmers Detroit was the won the cup. Number 7, Florida driving the Locomobile. Some people said that there was a Locomobile here that won the race, not here specifically, but there was a couple gentlemen here in Lake County that owned Locomobiles. The one that was in the race and that did so well in the one race, it's not here. It's in a museum, in a racing museum, and it's never been back here since. Cobe Cup enthusiast in Lake County mourn the death of daring driver. This is one of the people that did drive, I guess did perish in the Cobe Cup. My mistake on that from before. And I'm going to have to cheat here and get this out of the booklet. Let me get around the podium and get a booklet here. Thank you. And for those of you that haven't seen these before, we have some booklets for you on the race, on the 2 races, and they're free of charge because I print them at home. And here you go. Indiana Trophy, again on time on that. The notes on the other one, car number 1 lost a universal joint on lap 13. Car number 8, this is Cobe Cup, lost a suspension spring on lap number 11. Car number 7 lost a connecting rod on lap number 6. Car number 12 lost his fuel tank on lap number 5. Car number 6, which was run by, driver was by the name of Florida, and he was driving an Apperson. He lost it on the first lap. I mean, he didn't even make it past the finish line once. Louis Chevrolet was the leader of lap 4, and that's really glad to see. He was the leader of 14 out of 17 laps, is how it worked out. This is the first time I've given this in ages, so sorry if I'm not right on top of it. Again, this is the 12 cars that started, and it's the same information I just gave you on who got what and how they made it. This is the map, and this is really outstanding. The black numbers on this are the telegraph stations, and again, they were all overseen by the military from Illinois, forget what they call it. And you can see right there at the bottom of this is Crown Point, or Cedar Lake. And at the other end, that's another one we'll talk about. Megaphone announcements were made from the judging stands, so people would know what was going on. And of course, after it was over with, they had to tell everybody, well, Chevrolet won it even though, So that was interesting. This is one of my favorite photos because on the left is the judging stand. And just on this side of the judging stand was the pit stops for the worker, for the crews. At the far end, where the second arrow is, on the top of it, that's one of the big walkovers or drive-overs, the big overpass, one of the big overpasses. On the right, you'll see the grandstand, which I believe was supposed to hold something like 100,000 people, and trust me, it didn't get anywhere near that. You can't have a circus in a city park and expect to charge people for it, and that's about what had happened. So from this, we see what it looks like today, which is this. And this right here at the T intersection on the right, that's where the grandstands used to be. And on the left, that's where the judges and press used to be. This is my favorite corner. It's the northwest corner of South Street. And it heads down Ruffle Shirt Road past the Lake County Fairgrounds. When I photographed this several years ago for the PowerPoint program, I was very pleased to see that that house is still there. It's a very difficult house to photograph because there's no place to park. And this is as you head south towards the Fairgrounds or towards Cedar Lake, and that's the same thing. You can't get photos because there's no place to park. You can't park in driveways because they're going to call the police. So anyway, this is the S-curves getting close to down here at Cedar Lake. And they are S's. It's a big S-curve, not the big 90 that was up at the top. And if you are down there these days, the stretch from one corner of the Fairgrounds to the other, headed west, that entire thing is being changed. The L's are being taken out completely, and you can see from one end to the other, which you haven't been able to do for years. And that leads you to Cedar Lake Road. And that's the S-curves today. And you can see that there isn't any change in them at all. This was the Mr. Poole, the driver, on the Chalmers Detroit car. That was Chevrolet with his sidekick. They all had to have two people because they had to pump the gas. You know, they had to change the tires. You name it. Those are the 90s. That's Louis Strange, who won the first race. And this is my favorite one. My favorite, because the people there's a hardware store on the right now. But this is what's great. It's changed. It's totally changed. And I have no trouble with that. You know, back when this race was run, there was very few people around here. What?
Go back to the first one, the last one again, real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
I took all the pictures of the Cobe Cup 2020.
Oh, okay.
You were the last car.
Very good. And this is your daughter, right?
It's my daughter.
Goes over well, doesn't it?
This is 2020, the Cobe Cup. That's what he saw, but the thing is, that's the old days, this is the new days.
Yep. And that's what it is today, and I think that's remarkable. It's the way, you know, and the townhouses on both sides shows that this is an up-and-coming neighborhood. You know, all of Lake County is, Lake and Porter County is. And if you haven't figured out why, it's because Illinois got a bunch of idiots that keep raising the taxes without a limit. And Indiana passed a budget, and they can't do it. Now our taxes are based strictly on assessed value, fair market value and assessed value. And of course, if all these people keep moving in, then the price of the houses is going to go up and you're going to pay more taxes. But that's another story. This is my favorite piece, is that this was actually the part of the race, and this was in the book, and this is nothing more than an alley. I hate to say it, but it's a mess. It's a mess. And the next photo will show you that. There was a notice to the drivers to slow down and honk your horn because nobody's going to stop. They try to stop traffic, but there's nothing you can do. So this is the slide I like. That's it today. And what we have to do when we drive this route is we have to go to the right just before this and come in onto Route 2. But this is one of the new photos that I got. And believe it or not, I bought this on eBay from Australia. And what's really interesting in it, if you look to the right, where the people are standing, and you look closely, you'll see a wire fence. And you move to the left and you'll see it again, you'll see the wire fence, and it's 6 foot tall. Now finding these things is really important to me because we had no idea. The same thing, we had no idea where in the world are they putting these cars. You know, there weren't any car dealerships in Lake County back then. And then we found out, and it was amazing. And again, this is how we get onto the route these days. This is Cemetery Road. It's Route 2, goes from Lowell to the 9-mile stretch, and it hasn't changed. And when I put this together, it was right after the big ruckus on tearing down Civil War statues. And to tell you, no one's touched this Civil War statue. So I'm very glad to see that. This was Cemetery Road and number 8. I don't think he left that spot, but this is the exact same place that it was before. And that's it. I was able to spot the tombstones on a couple of them that stood out the most. This is the route north, and for anybody that's going to drive this in an antique car, there is no passing anywhere on this entire route. And the worst part about this 9-mile road, or 9-mile stretch, is it does this all the way. So while you're up here, or down here, you don't see who's coming over the other way, so you don't dare pass, or you're going to lose your car and probably your life. But that's the same place. Very hard to get photos. I had to park in a cornfield to get this one. And again, this goes back to the map with the military telegraph and everything. And that meant they also had to run telegraph wires all to the center plate, to the judge's station. Lil Chevrolet won this in 1909, and that's him downtown with the judges. The Apperson team was also out there for that. This is an original photo. This is 1909 Buick Factory Racing Team in Flint, Michigan. So since Buick had a 30-some member racing team, it's obvious that horsepower and direction was a major part of what was going on. Ford engines, Model Ts, you could buy a Model T for under $400 back then, if not less. But they didn't have the horsepower or anything else. They wouldn't do the same speed. This is a newspaper piece. 70,000 high-tension magnets were sold a year. This was an advertisement on auto parts. That is the judge's box on the right-hand side. The people were coming through here. Stromberg carburetors were being advertised. This was a big advertisement program for all the automakers. And this is when it went down to Indianapolis, is the Cobe Cup. 200-mile race down there as opposed to what we had up here on the 2 of them. And nice to have seen that. As for car prices back then, these are not the same cars that they were running in the races. But $1,650 back then, when the average worker wasn't making 50 cents an hour, they aren't going to be buying it. His boss might, the company owner might, but they're not going to be buying it. Same thing here, Locomobile. Stevens Durant, $4,000 for a car. And this, I believe, is just, they wrote a song about this. I've never gotten the music, and if I did, I don't play an instrument, so I have to come to you guys to all get together and form a chorus. This is another one that we just got, and I got this from overseas again. Where did they house the cars? Anybody that would give them their storefront for a month. You know, if you had cars in both places, then you needed places to do it. So this is on the south side of Crown Point's courtyard, right near the major square. We believe that the Knox headquarters sign was put in Australia or somewhere quite some time ago, for sure. But this is back when they had glass slides. They didn't have film, they had glass plates that they would expose the photo in, which meant that they had to stop everything for the most part for a photo like this. I do like the fact that there's 2 watchers there to make sure they don't run over any pedestrians. This again is about the same time, and again you can see people, the cars that people drove, and then Apperson is on the far left, and Apperson's here on the right. I don't know who's at the other end. The hotel down there is the newest piece I got. It's ordered, but I won't have it until next month or so. And it was a colorized postcard, but it had like a dozen cars surrounding that hotel. So, and the hotel's been going for decades. This one was a new one. There was a hotel here called the Binion at Cedar Lake, and that's where the Stoddard Dayton race team and cars were kept. I actually had, looking at that piece, I thought it said Lassen Hotel, and it didn't, or Hotel Lassen, it didn't. And our wonderful friend here told me, you're wrong, they didn't build this hotel until 21. And I thought, well, gonna change that slide today. And I did. So this is the other one by Mr. McCutcheon's, and it says the Toot Ensemble, because he looked at it as being just a disaster. But again, back then, if you were driving your own car, you had a chauffeur that drove it for you at $4,000 a car, you probably had a chauffeur. You didn't go racing around town. You wanted to be seen in your car, and it was a status symbol. So, I will have booklets for everybody if you don't have one. One per family if possible. This map that is here is is based on the Winnemac map of 1983. And we still use it in the Highland Model A Club. It's a great thing to have. I had special magnets made for my car using the checkerboard of the flag. And after I picked them up and paid for them, I realized I now look like a taxi cab. So by next year, what I hope to do is go back to the same people that made the magnets this year and tell them I want the crossroads, the cross flags, just like the ones at the start and stop area. I just don't want people coming up, can you give me a ride home? Where's the meter? No, we're not going to do that. So are there any questions? Thank you very much.